What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Today we are headed to get 12-inch pipe for an entrance. Winter chicken dinner. Let's see what that looks like. A little more. Don't particularly love this lifted truck for this. I love this place. Just all the big pipe, all the steel in general. Man, I just love it. We are now at the steel supply picking up the 12-inch pipe for the 12-inch entrance. 12-inch entrance. We're doing a 12-inch overhead, 24-foot wide opening with 8-inch 45s on each of the uprights, like a Y situation instead of 6-inch. I'm pretty excited about it. And two 12-foot gates with a diagonal piece, but instead of 2 7/8 and 2 3/8 pipe like we've done in the past, we're going to be doing 4.5-inch pipe and 3.5-inch pipe. So just a little bit bigger. And the coolest part about it all is this entrance is going all the way to North Dakota. For those of you who may be new around here, what we've done in the past is fab up the entrances here at the arosswelding location. We do everything we can except weld the 2 uprights to the top horizontal. That way all 3 pieces, the 2 uprights and the horizontal piece, can be hauled to anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world technically, and then be installed by either a local welder, the landowner themselves, or we can go install it, whatever the case may be. I'm rather excited about this project. Here it comes. We got one piece that's just shy of 40 foot that we'll cut in half for our uprights, and then one piece that'll work for our big overhead. All right, so I think the first thing I'm gonna do is lay out a 45 on one of these ends, just so I can figure out how much of a takeoff it's gonna be. Because from the end of my, pretend there's a line here, from here to the start of my 8-inch, I want there to be a, not too much gap, but probably, at least 4 or 5 inches, maybe even 6 inches. All that to say is I just need to do some thinking, some laying out before I make my horizontal piece, before I cut it to the length. As far as put 45s on both ends, I gotta know an overall length. But to do all that, first thing I need to do is get this 12-inch piece of pipe up in 2 jack stands with roller heads, which is what we got right over there. Got my new gin pole set up that you guys I don't think have seen yet. Here it is. Here's the new gin pole setup. Biggest difference, it's square tubing versus the round, and it goes into my 5th wheel hitch instead of down here, so it kind of stays out of the way. And the other stuff is exactly the same as the ones that we sell the prints for in the arosswelding store, but our chains go back here to these D-rings versus these D-rings, which is where I hook my chains whenever I'm using the longer, stronger gin pole. This one's not as heavy duty, I would say, but anyway. So let's go ahead and get this thing in some jack stands. That's how unlevel this ground is right here. And I do not love that at all. For what I'm doing, it doesn't have to be level this way. Just a habit of mine, fabrication. But since it ain't safe and we don't need it level this way, I'm gonna drop her on down. That way it's more stable, because all I'm gonna do is put 45s on here and cap them. And then I'll end up moving this whole thing probably somewhere else a little more level before I put my legs on. All right, so I came down to the other end because I shouldn't need all of this pipe. I should need, that's what I'm figuring out right now, is how much of it I need, but roughly I should be cutting off a couple feet of this, but I'm not sure yet. And that other end seemed to have a little, the pipe was just bent, I guess. I don't know, like you couldn't tell by looking at it, but when I went to put my piece of angle on here to mark these lines, it was off on one side, so I'm gonna cut that off is the idea. So I wanna put a 45 down here. But I ran into a little situation. So the pipe fitter's blue book, if you've been following, you know a little bit about it. We've worked out of it before. We sell these in the arosswelding store if you're interested in your own blue book. It's got tons of numbers, but I just learned that it doesn't have numbers for a 12-inch on a 45. It's got 12-inch 30-degree cut for a 60-degree turn, and what we need is a 45-degree cut for a 90-degree turn. And so it only goes up to 24-inch 30-degree cut for a 60-degree turn. But what I'm going to find out is, I found out that I do have to break it down into 16ths like we've done here, and then if my calculations are correct, I think all I need to do is add 3/4 of an inch to all these 4 numbers right here, if my calculations are right. And all I did was find out how many numbers were between 30 degrees and 22.5 degrees, and I found out how many degrees are between 30 degrees and 45, and I just referenced everything that they've got here, working their way up, and I come up with 3/4 of an inch plus these measurements here. So I'm gonna lay it out and see if it works. Luckily for this project, this is literally just aesthetics. In other words, it's just for looks. So even if it's not a 45, it's not too terribly big a deal, although we do want to get close, because since this particular entrance is getting them 8-inch 45s here, the 45 up here does look the best because it's going to be parallel with our 8-inch 45s. But anyway, let's go ahead and lay this out. Okay, correction on the adding 3/4 of an inch to these measurements. I'm not positive because I'm filming this little segment right here a few days later for this video, but I just wanted to let you know that through my thinking and studying of these numbers, 3/4 of an inch to each one of these numbers is wrong. I'm pretty sure what I did is whatever the difference was between this number and this number, I added that to this number, and the same thing, whatever the difference is between this number and this number, so 1 inch and 7/8, 2 5/8, I added that difference to 2 5/8. I did the same thing. You can literally screenshot this or do whatever you need to do to see what I did if you care, or you can just write these numbers down. 12-inch 45 cut for a 90. These are the measurements that I used to get our 45-degree straight cut, like so. I was actually going to go ahead and write these down in the notes pages. This blue book has got a few pages back here, blank pages you can take notes in. Got a couple things, cutting down fittings whenever I was pipelining. But I'm gonna, before I write them in there, I'm gonna write them right here. So 1 3/8 plus. All right, so the measurements that I came up with were 2 1/8 for number 1. Dang, I done screwed up. Because I need this to be out here, because I'm wasting 6 inches of pipe. Alright, mistake is fixed. All I did was move my reference line from here to here. For some reason, I doubled my longest measurement. Don't know why, but so this line is no longer important. This is our reference line, and it'll be like this. This will be the shortest point of our 45, and this will be the longest down here. Alright, I think it's close, and the reason I do is because I'm going to take this speed square and lay it right at the throat, and if you get over the top here, see how that line runs this way, right in line with that. That's how we know it's pretty close to a 45. I used to have a template, like a saddle template and a 45 template back years ago whenever I worked at that steel supply. They sold them, so whenever I was practicing for the branch test, the 12 on 12 branch test, the only 12-inch saddle template I could get, because I knew nothing about the Blue Book and laying the stuff out. The saddle come with a 45 also. So I used to have one. Hardly ever, I don't know if I ever even used it at all back in the day. I'll probably end up buying one again, just so I don't have to lay these out every time I get an entrance to do. Template's obviously way faster, but that's one thing that I like about the Blue Book is no matter what, if you're short on money or like in my situation, been doing this for 15, 16 years, welding in general, and just for some reason you don't have one and you only have a couple of 45s to do, the Blue Book has the answers, or can get you the answers. The Blue Book didn't have the 12-inch 45 like we just learned, but at least I was able to figure it out, and I didn't have to wait on a template to arrive if I were to order it, and I didn't have to spend the money on it. But anyway, just wanted to mention one of the benefits to having the Pipe Fitters Blue Book. All right, let's go ahead and cut this bad boy. There she is. Put a cap on her. Picture that up in the air. Oh yeah. Good old 12-inch. Thanks for coming along with me today. For more helpful resources, you can check out our website, arosswelding.com, and our trade school website, arosswelding.school. Let me know in the comments what you learned from this video, if anything. Although I hope you learned something, because I know I did. Even though it took some extra time and a little bit of thinking to figure out those numbers that the Blue Book didn't have, that was sharpening my mind, in my opinion. So, and I was able to learn something, share it with you. So everything's just all the better because of it. But like I said, ideally for a proficient or more efficient setup, a 12-inch 45 template would be ideal. Any template for anything you're doing a lot of is obviously ideal. But if you're a DIYer and you're not doing much of anything, or if you're just piddling and you just like to learn and study and like to sharpen your brain, the Blue Book is super handy and it's super fun, and it feels satisfying, if you will, to lay something out. I don't know what it is about laying something out versus using a template, but to me it just feels super satisfying. All that to say is I learned something, and I hope you did too. If you're wanting a more detailed run through on how to lay something out from the Blue Book, we will link a video in the description of this video of me walking you through laying out a 6-inch 45 to go up against an 8-inch. The process that I take you through in that video will give you an idea of how the Blue Book works. That way, if you do end up getting a Blue Book, you will know kind of how it works. Everything is explained in the Blue Book, but it can take a while to kind of wrap your mind around. So I know watching videos can be helpful. So we'll link that video down below if you're interested in how to lay something out from the Blue Book. Again, thanks for being here. I hope you have an awesome weekend. And remember, learn something every day.